Hey everybody, I'm going to make a little lidded pot today. I have a petri from my friend Myriam of Myriam's Nature. This is a square petri, which is a little bit unusual, I guess, but nonetheless, I marked the center on it so that I could make a nice round shape of it because I'm going to inlay it in the lid of the little pot. So I have it attached to just a leftover piece of one of the last things I parted off with some double stick tape, and obviously the tailstock is up there for support. So right now I'm just going to get it round, and then later on I'll size the hole to accept this little disc. I'm not going to be using most of the depth of this. The alcohol ink is at the very bottom there, and the rest of it is basically clear. So I'm only going to be using probably maybe 1/4 of an inch from coming up from the bottom. So I have a piece of walnut that I cut. It's actually almost a cube, and I'm going to put a tenon on one side. This is really dry walnut. This is some of the last of the real thick stock that I have from back in the days when I was doing much more flat work. You notice I didn't get it completely round. I just wanted to get it running a little bit true, and then when I turned it back around, if it was off a little bit, I wouldn't be taking off so much material. So there's the tenon for what's going to be the lid. I'm not using my hand to catch the thing because I was afraid that I would slip and cut my hand, and instead it just went flinging off across the lathe. I had to get a crowbar and retrieve it. So I found a couple of designs online that I liked, and I wanted to do something similar. The pot portion of this is a little bit pumpkin shaped, actually. I'm using my skew as a negative rake scraper, trying to refine the shape a little bit. My dad gave me a handful of nice integrated Morse taper drill bits, so I used one of those to get the depth started, and then I came back with a Forstner bit. So I started hollowing with the lathe running the normal direction and like you would hollow anything. But pretty quickly I went ahead and put it in reverse so that I could work on hollowing at the opposite end of the pot. It just gives you much better access when you can go along the backside there, especially when you have an undercut rim. I had a pretty good finish, so I started sanding with 120. I'm not really sure where these lines are coming from. You'll start to be able to see them before I even turn the lathe off, but I had assumed that I was getting burnishing marks, but sometimes I'm getting those when I'm using a scraper and there's no bevel to burnish the wood, so I don't really understand why I get so many of those, and they are a nightmare to sand out. If any of you guys have any idea what the deal is and let me know, that would be great. I decided to go back with my shear scraper and try and clean the surface up again, and I still ended up with some of them, so I just sanded and sanded and sanded. Eventually I got rid of them, but it was a pain. It shouldn't be this complicated. So I already used the denatured alcohol to get the dust and stuff off, and then a 1 pound cut of shellac for my sanding sealer. And I'm going to use the Axe products on this one. This is the abrasive sanding paste. I only sanded up to about 400 on the base of this because there isn't any resin in it. When I go to do the lid, I'll sand up through some higher grits to make sure that I get the resin disc nice and smooth. So the last finishing step is going to be the Axe polish and restoring paste. Okay, so it's time for the lid. Dear overhead camera, why are you focused on the banjo and not on the thing sticking out of the headstock? That's really frustrating. Sorry about that, guys. In any case, my plan for the lid is to have a tenon that sticks down from the inside of the lid that will sit inside the pot. The one I measured isn't remotely close to being the right size. It was way too small. Okay, not way too small, but it was a looser fit than I wanted. So I got rid of that one and just am going to go trial and error until I get the fit that I want. I used a Forstner bit just to take some of the material out of the lid. I'm not going to go crazy trying to make it super pretty up in there, just going to get rid of some of the material and make it smooth. So for the design of this lid, I didn't end up with the proportions quite the way that I had wanted them. It was a stupid bead that caused me all the issues. The way that it was supposed to look is there's supposed to be a small bead right above the spot where the tenon comes down to go into the base. And then from there, the next section of the lid sort of goes up at not quite as steep an angle as I've got going here. And then it's going to come out and then come back towards the top and dome a little bit, which that part's still in the chuck. But there wasn't a lot of room to work with, and I am not real well versed in spindle turnings and doing beads and things. I'm pretty sure that if I decide that these things are going to be necessary going forward, that I'm just going to get a beading tool because this was a little bit ridiculous. I tried to get some more clearance in there so that I didn't catch the gouge, which I didn't catch it, but it skated back on me. So I'll go back and try to clean that up. I always wear a face shield when I'm turning. In this instance right here, I had to take it off and put on my cheater safety glasses because I could not see what I was doing, which is why my hair is sticking up in part of the overhead shot. I finally gave up and decided that I was just going to sand the damn thing to round it over because nobody was ever going to know if I cut a beautiful bead with a spindle gouge or if I whacked away at it and then did it with sandpaper. So to end my frustration, I just cheated it a little bit. And this is an emery board. I use that when I'm carving sometimes, trying to get into the nooks and crannies. You can see that I finished the inside of the lid and the section there, but I cut that out because you guys know how my finishing process goes. So, once again, I have made the thing I'm trying to work with unmountable. It was just the wrong size for a mortise or a tenon, so I ended up chucking it back up and very carefully and with my fingers and toes all crossed, enlarging the inside of the lid to accommodate a mortise, which has a dovetail on it. I was very happy that I had enough wood left to be able to get the jaws inside and hold on to the lid while I finished the top. I was extra careful when I was doing all the rest of the work because I didn't want to expand the jaws too far. I was really afraid that I was going to just bust that mortise out. So I'm starting to work on the overall shape of the very top, which is just supposed to be a little bit of a dome. I decided I'd better go ahead and get the recess made for the little resin petri before I took any more material away. And again, I'm just sneaking up on it until I get the fit right. I probably could have used an 1 3/8 Forstner bit and been as close as I got it by hand. There was just a little bit of potential wiggle room with the Forstner bit, and I thought I could get it closer if I did it myself, and it ended up being about the same, I think. So because I don't want to take the piece out of the chuck, I took the chuck off the lathe. And this is the little petri. This is actually in real time. Everything else is sped up 600%, but this little section right here is in real time. I'm using UV resin. This is the Let's Resin brand, and it is cured with a UV light. There's something oddly satisfying about watching it just gush out. I made sure I put some extra in so that it would fill any gaps around the resin piece. It's supposed to cure under a UV light in 4 to 6 minutes. I let it sit under the UV light for probably 10 just to be safe. Here I'm just trying to take off a good chunk of the material off of the top, which is why I didn't worry about it when I marked the center and then used the cone live center to, to hold it in there, because I knew that I was going to be taking most of that off. You can't really see it because the camera's not focusing on the thing I'm turning, but there were a couple of little bubbles from the UV resin around the edge, so I'm going to try and make sure that I can go deep enough to cut those out. I don't know why I have so much trouble with the little niblet in the center. I either make it concave or convex, or concave or convex. I have a really hard time just getting it to be smooth. I'm not sure why. Seems like it should be easy enough. So I went after the entirety of this top with basically negative rake scrapers, whether it was my skew, or I have a bowl scraper that I put a negative rake on, or my negative rake carbide. And that left a pretty good surface. So I've got my shellac on, and I'm doing the abrasive sanding paste from Axe. I really like the color of the Petri with the walnut. From this view, you can see where I named it the flying saucer pot. It wasn't supposed to look like a flying saucer, but I'm just learning to embrace the design change. You can see there's a knot in the very bottom of the pot that was causing me a little bit of issue when I was hollowing it. It was singing some. So now I'm going to take off the tenon, and I have a relatively thick bottom, so I'm not terribly afraid that I'm going to go through the bottom. I think I'm going to wait another day or so to pick the winner for the 5,000 subscriber giveaway. I will post an announcement on the community post page, and also we'll talk about the winner in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this one, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment. I love to know what you guys are thinking. Keep an eye out for the giveaway announcement, and until next time, y'all be safe out there.